Before we get started, I would like to note, I recorded this and we finished this video before the Switch 1 Direct happened, and on that day was that whole thing where Nintendo seems to have accidentally confirmed the idea of Switch 2 Edition games. We still don't know exactly what that means, and therefore it does not necessarily affect the contents of this Xenoblade thing. It does not render the contents of this video irrelevant. However, it would have been weird to put that out without any mention of this because it is absolutely a part of the same conversation. So yeah, now for the, I just needed to mention that. Now for the actual video. Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition just launched, and I hear it's great. I hear it's really good if we just want to touch on that for a minute. From what I've heard, it seems that Monolith Soft did, like, essentially every single thing they possibly could to make the game that much better. Just, like, every single, like, improvement you could possibly ask for just to, like, perfect the entire experience. And, you know, it looks great, runs great, new content, like, new characters, but they're, like, just there in the story. Just like, I have no idea how you can integrate new content like that into a pre-existing thing, but apparently they did it just like flawlessly. New like ending stuff. Yeah, I don't know. Just Nintendo Life. What did they give it? They give it a 10. Yeah. Wow. A 10. That's huge. I'm not gonna get anyone's hopes up, but if I ever did play a Xenoblade game, like if I had to pick one to play right now, it'd probably be this one. I really like the whole sci-fi thing. Yeah, looks really good. So anyway, yeah, it came out, and it's really, really awesome that it seems to be satisfying series fans. But its launch has come with an interesting little tidbit. It seems that modder Masa Greater was digging around in the game's files, as modders are wont to do. Some of these files reveal how the game runs. For instance, the game uses dynamic resolution. It ranges from 504p to 720p handheld and 760p to 1080p docked. Cool. But that is not the most interesting piece of information there. Apparently, it seems that the game has a hidden, unused 60 FPS mode. The game, as it is locked at 30 FPS, and again, I hear it's quite stable most of the time. But there in the files, Masa Greater found a 60 FPS mode that this person was able to turn on and test out. However, according to Masa Greater, quote, "It seems to be implemented only partially since enabling it causes weird issues." And you know, that does make sense. All of a sudden you try to force a game to render at 60 FPS and it's not actually intended to. It's going to cause some problems. And then someone asked if animations were perhaps tied to the frame rate. Masa Greater says, gameplay is rendered every second frame, so even though it outputs 60 FPS, you get in fact 30 usable frames. Cutscenes sometimes are working fine, sometimes some objects are jittering like hard-coded to be 30 FPS. Sometimes it's, again, every second frame rendered. So basically, it looks like the game was not really intended to run this way, causes some problems, and then it's not even like a full 60 FPS mode. The frames are more or less being doubled up. So is there anything that we can glean or assume from this? It is certainly possible that this is nothing more than a, like, development leftover. It could be that this was simply an option that allowed them to toy with the idea. Perhaps at one time they imagined trying to get the game to run at 60 FPS, and this was, yeah, just kind of a leftover. I mean, pure speculation. I really don't know how most of this stuff works, but I imagine that could be a thing. You know, you get leftover files and whatnot here and there. However, with Switch 2 big reveal right around the corner, of course, this elicits thoughts, ponderings about some sort of potential 60 FPS mode when the game runs on Switch 2. It could be that when we play the game on Switch 2, there will be some sort of performance patch. I mean, is it possible that they will update this, like, specific feature here? They will, like, enable it in a different way, or perhaps just put in a different, like, full version. I really don't know, but is it perhaps telling that the developers were playing around with a 60 FPS mode? And I mean, like, obviously we really do not know at all. We definitely can't get our hopes up. I think what makes me feel more hopeful that this could mean something for, like, the game running at 60 FPS on Switch 2 is that, like, well, just like think about it. Xenoblade games, they're humongous. They're really, really big, you know? And this game looked really weirdly good on the Wii U. It really did. And now they've improved it even more. It looks really great, and it still runs really well. But, like, you know, it's the Switch. You make a big, huge, open world game. There is no reality where that runs at 60 FPS. You know, like, that is not... I am a layman. I'm the definition of the layman. I know next to nothing, and yet, like, even I can tell, like, you're not gonna make a game like this run higher than 30 FPS. It's not possible. I mean, just look at the Switch. Look how many other games struggle to even hit 30. You think Xenoblade Chronicles X, this big, huge game, and then, like, in this one with the big, like, skells or whatever, the mechs that you're flying around all over the place. No, like, I'm surprised that it's at a stable 30. That, to me, is, like, surprising. If this game had come out and it was added to the list of games that run poorly and are kind of disappointing on the Switch, I would not be surprised. So, like, it was never going to run at 60. I don't know. And you know, it's still possible that maybe I don't know, it's good to test this stuff. You know, you gotta test it. Maybe someone was just kind of messing around with it. I don't know. But, like, if this does mean anything, I don't know, it feels perfectly possible that this does mean some sort of 60 FPS mode will be enabled on Switch 2. I don't know, it just, like, that makes sense. And I'm sure the Switch 2 will be powerful enough to run this game at 60. It's gonna be that much more powerful. I don't see why there would be any game at all, any Switch game, that would not be able to run at 60 FPS on the Switch 2. Not that I'm getting my hopes up, you know, I'm not gonna launch into the whole entire thing, but it really just comes down to, like, what the developers want to do, and often you get something like say Bloodborne. Everybody really wants a remaster of that game on PS5. They really, really want to play Bloodborne at 60 FPS, but something about the way the game was developed, the way that it was coded, it was, like, coded with 30 FPS in mind. I don't know how that would work. I don't know why that would be the case. I can't really understand why you wouldn't be able to just make some tweaks. I mean, it doesn't just come down to how the game runs. It's also, like, how the gameplay works and iframes and whatnot. Yeah, I really don't know why it would be a problem, but that at least is a thing. That is a thing that people have said, is that, like, you can't necessarily just take any game and just increase the frame rate. Sometimes games are made with a certain frame rate in mind, and if you just uncap the frame rate or whatever, or put it higher, you could cause gameplay problems. It could take extra work. So anyway, all that to say, I'm not getting my hopes up that every single Switch 1 game is going to run at 60 FPS on Switch 2. I can certainly hope, but in any case where they want to enable that, I'm sure that they can. And so, I guess that's it. I mean, I guess that's really all I had to say, is just, this could be the case. It really could. This could mean nothing. It could just be a development leftover. Or it could mean that, yeah, when we play Xenoblade Chronicles X on Switch 2, it's gonna run at 60 FPS, which would be a bit of a shame, especially with such a huge RPG, to release, like, a couple months before the system comes out. You sink 150 hours or whatever into it, and then it comes out, and you're like, oh, I wish I'd waited. But we'll see. And, I mean, you know, of course, we will just see soon enough what Nintendo's plans for backwards compatibility and potential next-gen upgrades and whatnot are. But then it will also be interesting that when the Switch 2 comes out, I'm hoping that modders, perhaps Masa Greater themselves, are able to dig into the files and either confirm or deconfirm whether or not this specifically ended up being true. If, like, the same option itself became enabled or you know, altered and then enabled in some way. I don't know. That'll be kind of interesting to see.